Welcome back to Recruit and Relax. This is the introductory episode of the second part of the web series, Classmate Interviews. And this section is super important because I want you to be able to have an understanding of what options and industries exist for you when you're recruiting, as well as a general understanding of what that recruiting might look like. And I want you to have this so you can begin to narrow down what industries you might want to recruit for earlier on. Now, let's take a step back. One of the biggest reasons people pursue an MBA is the idea that they can pivot their careers or kind of advance their career in their industry. And business school does a really great job of selling you on the variety of options that exist, as well as the idea that you can kind of explore and see what exists out there. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is false, but I'm also not completely fully saying it is true either. What is true is that there are a variety of options for you to explore, but what you must realize is that the exploration actually happens quite a bit quicker than you normally think. So for example, when I applied to business school and I kind of wrote my essay of what I wanted to do, I picked consulting just to pick something, but I wasn't fully committed to that. And I honestly wasn't even quite sure what consulting is when I wrote that essay, so it probably wasn't a very good essay. Now, when I came to campus, what I wanted to do was kind of figure out what industries exist and kind of explore, and I really thought I had a lot of time to do this. But what I recognized is that all this exploration happens very quickly, and you really do want to try to commit to an industry pretty quickly so that you can begin to prepare for that industry and begin to network. And there was a few things I recognized, and one was obviously that you need to do this relatively quickly, and the other was that there wasn't a great way to get kind of a broad overview of what industries existed, what they looked like, to kind of help my ability to narrow that down. So what I ended up doing was pursuing consulting, talking to people, and I realized that it was something I did want to pursue, but I really didn't give myself enough time or explore other industries, which I do think would have been good for me to do. So this is kind of why I think these classmate interviews are so important, is I want you to be able to come to campus and have a good idea of what options might exist for you so you can actually do that narrowing down much more quickly than I or my classmates were able to do without that same resource. So I'm not going to be covering every industry. That's just not possible. There's a lot of industries where you might see one or two people recruiting for. Certainly reach out to those. I'm going to try to cover the bigger industries that most of my classmates went into. All right, so what do these episodes actually look like? And they're all going to follow a very similar structure. So the first part is obviously getting to know my incredible classmates, a bit about their background, also why they chose the industry they ultimately pursued. And all of these individuals were extremely successful recruiting, and I want you to get to know them a little bit through this process. The second section, which is going to be very important, is going to be a high-level overview of what the industry looks like, what options might exist in that industry, how you might think about it, as well as their summer experience. So if you do intern in that industry, what might that look like for you? Third section, if you're interested in this industry, what does recruiting look like in this industry and how do they prepare? And then the final and fourth section is just closing advice to you, whatever closing thoughts they want to give to you. And what I really want you to take away from these episodes is to determine if you are interested in this industry so that you can pursue further information. And remember, you want to prioritize the industry you want to recruit for earlier rather than later. The reason for this is that there's actually a ton of preparation involved in recruiting, and everything you do is tailored towards kind of the industry and the role that you're going to want to interview for. So if you're wanting to pursue multiple industries, that's just double the amount of work you're going to have to do. And on top of core, that gets a lot very quickly. So you really want to prioritize. This does not mean that if you take a few months to decide, you will not be successful. I had a number of classmates and friends who didn't decide what they wanted to recruit for till later, and they still found a lot of success. With that being said, most of them would openly admit they wish they had chosen the industry they ultimately went with sooner. Because what would happen is that they were behind some of their classmates and they had to work harder to make up for that lost time. which meant just a little bit more stress, more preparation, longer hours, and that's on top of schooling that you're already doing. So after watching these episodes, if you're fully committed to an industry, that's great. I would recommend reaching out to the club, begin to reach out to second years to kind of learn more and make sure you're following the path towards success that's laid out by them. If, however, you're like the majority of students who probably pursue an MBA, you're kind of still undecided, you're thinking about a bunch of different industries, what I want you to do is try to think about narrowing that down. And I would use the first month of school to set up a few coffee chats with second years in each of those industries and really use those coffee chats to determine if that's an industry you want to pursue further and really begin to prioritize which industry you think will allow you to be more successful and give you the opportunities you're seeking in that industry. So really use that time early to do that. And then after that, you really kind of want to have a priority of which one you're pursuing so you can begin to jump in and prepare for that. And, as I said before, remember, the more industries you're pursuing, the more preparation you're going to need to do. And a lot of industries don't work well together, so that's something to be aware of. Like investment banking, consulting are very, very difficult to do at the same time because they both require a lot of preparation and a ton of networking. So think about, if you do want to pursue multiple industries, which ones compare together? Consulting and corporate strategy work a little bit better together because a lot of the preparation you might do in terms of casing can apply to both roles. So just think about that if you do want to work for or apply to two different industries. So I hope you enjoy the interviews, and I will see you back for the Q&A portion of this web series. Thank you.